2,500 years ago, Sun Tzu outlined a strategic paradox that still governs modern power. He observed that winning a confrontation once it has started represents only average skill. The highest skill is organizing reality so that a fight never needs to happen. But when we face a difficult conversation, especially early in our careers, our first instinct is usually the exact opposite. We open a blank document and start drafting a script, rehearsing our arguments and preparing for a verbal battle. That direct conflict is incredibly expensive. Winning an argument forces the other side into a defensive posture, draining your energy, straining the relationship, and creating residual instability that you will have to manage long after the conversation ends. There is a mechanical alternative. We can build a specific positioning blueprint to engineer leverage long before anyone sits down at a table. Instead of stacking heavier rocks on the scale, we shift the fulcrum. True strategic power requires organizing your circumstances so that the debate becomes obsolete before it begins. To do this, we need to map out your position. Take a blank piece of paper and draw 2 lines down the middle, dividing it into 3 vertical columns. At the very top, identify your upcoming conflict and define a single, concrete outcome. Avoid vague goals. Make them respect my work is too subjective to measure. The target must be a binary result that signals success, completely ignoring the method used to reach it. Now look at the first column. This is your alternative. You need to write down one independent action you can take if the other person simply says no. Having a tangible alternative removes the desperation from your posture. It is the difference between asking for permission and offering an opportunity. Take a standard salary negotiation. One employee walks in with a 3-page outline detailing their late nights and extra projects ready for a fight. Another walks in with an active, competing job offer from a rival firm. The person with the competing offer rarely has to raise their voice. The manager recognizes the structural reality of the situation and adjusts the compensation package, entirely bypassing the friction of a debate. Complaining to HR is not an alternative. Raising your voice is not an alternative. An alternative must be an action you can execute entirely on your own. The power you hold in any room is a direct reflection of your ability to safely and calmly walk out of it. In the second column, we establish asymmetric information. Here, you will list specific, verifiable data points that prove your position before you even open your mouth. An opinion is a vulnerability because it forces you to build an argument to defend it. Hard information stands entirely on its own. This means gathering industry salary benchmarks, auditing your project timelines, or acquiring a competitor's pricing sheet. At a macro level, this exact dynamic shaped the second half of the 20th century under the doctrine of Cold War deterrence theory. Global superpowers managed to maintain stable power for decades without direct warfare. They achieved this by building positions so overwhelming that launching an attack became too costly for the opponent to even consider. Your second column works exactly the same way. The independent data and external alternatives you gather serve as your personal deterrent system. When you introduce objective, asymmetric information into a room, the other party loses the ability to debate your worth. The interaction stops being a fight and becomes a straightforward transaction. There is one necessary limit to this strategy, and it belongs in the final column, the integrity check. You must ask yourself a simple yes or no question. Is this specific confrontation about naming an injustice, protecting someone with less power than you, or refusing a bad faith demand? If the answer is yes, then you must stop optimizing. Positioning is designed to avoid unnecessary friction, but some values cannot be reduced to a question of efficiency. Certain fights are worth the direct cost to your time and energy, regardless of whether a cheaper route exists. Building a positional advantage is a tool to preserve your resources, ensuring you actually have the energy to fight when it truly matters. It is never an excuse for cowardice. Look at your completed blueprint. You have defined a target, established an independent alternative, gathered undeniable data, and checked your integrity. Notice what is missing. There is no script, no speech, and no argument. By preparing this way, you have engineered an environment where the other person is forced to react to reality rather than debate your opinion. If you ignore this discipline now, you will spend the next 2 decades winning confrontations at full cost. The accumulated toll of those repeated conflicts in burned bridges, damaged reputations, and sheer exhaustion will eventually outweigh the value of any single victory. So this week, before your next negotiation or disagreement, fill out these 3 columns. Present your position, provide your data, and then just remain quiet. You have achieved total strategic success when you secure exactly what you wanted without ever needing to raise your voice.